quiet and reserved outside of battle, the apprentice truly shines when blasting back enemies with bursts of chilling ice and explosive fire. As a master elementalist, he controls the forces of nature to shatter the earth, command the wind, and burn down enemy hordes.
What's up, and welcome to the Beginner's Guide to The Apprentice. We're going to go over The Apprentice in and out for new players, so they better understand the character. Let's go to his defenses to start with. His Flame Tower unleashes a torrent of fire, draws reduced attention from enemies. However, it is susceptible to AoE damage. It deals a linear flame flower damage that pierces enemies, so it will hit multiple enemies in its area of effect. Arcane Barrier. It is a wall. It is one of the two walls you start with. The Squire has the other. After losing 25% health, it explodes, dealing magical damage and knocking enemies back. It draws attention from enemies. I really do not like the wall because it only deals damage at losing 25% health, and the Squire's wall deals constant damage. Frostbite Tower shoots a beam of frost at an enemy, slowing that enemy and all nearby enemies, draws reduced attention. So it is a slow, it does not do any damage, only slowing. Sends forth a long-range homing projectile at ground enemies, only ground enemies. When a projectile strikes an enemy, it erupts, dealing magical earth damage in a small area. It is so small that it will not hit two of the training dummies here, and I'll show you that in just a moment. His abilities: Arcane Volley. The apprentice fires up to 5 homing bolts at his marked enemies, dealing magical damage to each. And how you mark enemies is by dealing basic attacks or secondary attacks, your R2 or your L2, your staff attacks. Tornado. The apprentice hurls a tornado on allies, suspending enemies in the air and dealing magical storm damage over time. Deals extra damage to marked enemies. So again, it's good to mark your enemies for most of his attacks. This is good at stalling enemies that you want to kill, like the bombers and things like that, the kobold bombers. So throw them in the air and you can actually attack them while they're floating. Mana Bomb. The apprentice focuses, taking reduced damage, then unleashing an explosion, dealing magical damage. Deals extra damage to marked enemies. So again, marking enemies is a plus, and he has a self-heal. So let's go over his towers to start with. The Flame Tower. Frontal Cone, constant damage if enemies are there. Pierces enemies, so it will hit them all. Very good DPS, but it is again susceptible to AoE damage from the Goblin Bombers. So be careful where you place it. Try not to place it where there's going to be a lot of things going on. His Arcane Barrier, again, only deals damage when it loses 25% of its health. And it does deal a decent amount, 4,000 attack damage, 19,000 on a crit. But it only attacks when it loses 25% of its health. So to me, it's not that great. The slow aura, again, it hits one character and slows him and all characters around him in a small AoE. But it is just a slowing mechanic. It does not deal any damage. As you see, it's not attacking. And then you have the homing rocket here. And it says it deals it in a small area of effect, but you will notice did not hit the guy next to him. When it attacks him, it did not hit these two. So it does deal a decent amount of damage at 17,000 for the level and the equipment I have equipped on it. So it's not that bad, but it does attack fairly slow. It is super long range, so you can set it well behind your defenses and attack people that are attacking your defenses. So it is kind of good because of its range, but other than that, I think it costs a bit too much at 80. Alright, so his attacks, again, when you attack somebody, you mark them. Square. It says it only sends out 5, but there's 5. Oh, maybe it does. Okay. I've seen it attack multiple enemies. Maybe it has small AoE damage. But anyway, with marked targets, all of his abilities deal increased damage. So his circle ult deals massive damage at 250,000 crit with marked targets. And his tornado deals increased damage to marked targets. So it's always good to do basic attacks. I would prefer some sort of staff that spreads versus anything else, honestly, so that you can hit more people. So that's the Apprentice in a nutshell. I really like his slow is good for bosses when you know a boss is coming out, to put that down, slow the boss. That way your defenses have longer time to attack him, and it takes him longer to actually get to your walls. I do not like the Apprentice's wall at the start of the game. Maybe later on it becomes a little better, but I much prefer the Squire's wall. His Flame Aura is very good. His Flame Tower is very good at dealing constant damage, but again, it's super susceptible to AoE damage, so be sure you place it in an area that's not going to see a lot of bombs being thrown at it. I like to set towers up on walls and things like that. Later on, you have plenty of areas where you can do this. And because it attracts reduced enemy threat, if you place it somewhere near a wall, so if a wall is right in front of them and the tower is off to the side, they'll go for the wall while being attacked. And when they're throwing bombs and things at the wall, they will not hit the tower. The tower is safe from AoEs. So that's one way to do it. That's one way to play this character. You can, you'll figure it out as you play and try everything, try different tactics, try different towers out in different ways, and you'll get the hang of it before long. So that's the Apprentice Beginner's Guide. Hopefully you guys learned something, and we'll have some better apprentices out there.